The year is 1945. The world stands in the shadow of the most devastating war in human history. Cities lie in ruins, nations struggle to rebuild. But beneath the surface, in the laboratories of the world's most powerful nations, a new battle is brewing. One not fought with tanks or soldiers, but with science, with innovation, with the dream of conquering the final frontier. This is the story of the space race, a titanic clash between the United States and the Soviet Union, two superpowers locked in a deadly rivalry, not just for military dominance, but for the soul of humanity itself. At stake, more than just the stars. Victory would mean proving which ideology, capitalism or communism, was the true future of mankind. The war had ended, but the battle for supremacy had just begun. The Soviet Union and the United States turned their sights to the next great battleground, space. The era of rocketry had dawned, and with it, the possibility of reaching beyond Earth. Both nations scrambled to seize the secrets of the German V-2 rocket program. Scientists like Wernher von Braun, brilliant, controversial, and ambitious, were swept up into the engines of this new competition. The goal? To prove who could rule the stars. In the depths of Soviet research facilities, engineers toiled under the guidance of Sergei Korolev, the mysterious genius known only as the chief designer. He was the Soviet Union's greatest weapon in the space race. His vision? To launch the first artificial satellite into orbit. And on October 4th, 1957, the world changed forever. The sky above was no longer just for the birds and the clouds. For in the darkness, a new star appeared, and its name was Sputnik. The world was stunned. The Soviet Union had done the impossible. Sputnik 1, a small metallic sphere, had become the first human-made object to orbit Earth. The Americans were shocked. Fear swept through the West. If the Soviets could send a satellite into space, what else could they do? Could they launch weapons from the heavens? Could they control the skies? But the Soviets weren't finished yet. Just 1 month later, Sputnik 2 was launched, and aboard it, Laika, a living creature, a dog, sent into space. The message was clear. The Soviet Union was winning. The United States could not, would not, allow this to stand, and so they fought back. The Americans responded with Explorer 1, their first satellite, on January 31st, 1958. But this was only the beginning. The true test was yet to come. On April 12th, 1961, the Soviets struck again. Vostok 1 roared into the sky, carrying Yuri Gagarin, the first human in space. His words echoed through history.
I see Earth. It is beautiful.
The Soviets had done it again. They had sent a man beyond Earth and brought him back alive. But in Washington, a young president watched, and he refused to accept defeat. John F. Kennedy stood before the American people and made a declaration that would change history.
We choose to go to the moon.
The Americans would not just match the Soviets, they would surpass them. They would achieve the ultimate victory in the space race. And so began the Apollo program, a massive, high-stakes gamble that would push the very limits of human capability. Rockets were built. Astronauts were trained. Tragedies struck, but the mission never wavered. America was on a collision course with destiny. And then, on July 16th, 1969, Apollo 11 launched into the heavens. The world held its breath. Would this be the moment of triumph or tragedy? For 3 days, the spacecraft soared through the abyss, and then, on July 20th, humanity's greatest gamble reached its climax. They had done it! Humans had reached the moon! With the world watching, Neil Armstrong stepped down onto the lunar surface, his voice carried across the void of space.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
The space race had reached its peak. The Americans had not only caught up to the Soviets, they had surpassed them. The moon belonged not to one nation, but to all of humanity. But the space race was not just about flags and footprints. It had driven humankind to new heights. It had sparked technological revolutions, satellites, computers, advances in medicine and engineering. It had shown the world what was possible when ambition met innovation. But even as America celebrated, the world saw a new possibility. Was space meant to be a battlefield? Or could it be a bridge? And so, in 1975, an American Apollo spacecraft met a Soviet Soyuz module in orbit. The hatches opened, and astronauts from both nations shook hands. The space race had begun in rivalry, but now it turned towards something greater: cooperation. In the years that followed, this spirit of unity grew. After the fall of the Soviet Union, former rivals became partners. The International Space Station became a symbol of what humanity could achieve together. And today, the legacy of the space race lives on. It paved the way for new explorers, new frontiers. Private companies now reach for the stars. Nations work together to return to the moon, and one day to Mars. The battle to explore the cosmos is no longer a race between two superpowers. It is a mission for all of humanity. The space race was a moment of conflict, but it became a gateway to something more. It showed that competition can fuel innovation, that ambition can lead to the impossible, and that in the end, the stars are not meant to divide us, but to unite us. If you could travel to space, where would you go? The moon, Mars, beyond? Tell us in the comments below, and don't forget, subscribe for more epic tales of history's greatest battles, triumphs, and explorations. The final frontier awaits.